this is. AI? Not you. What'd you say? Music and AI. Is that what you're here for? Do you make music? You listen to it? Do you sing? $5 if you come sing a song right now. Bro, we had to let y'all in here for free. I got $5. If I would have charged y'all South by Southwest prices, I would have gave her 50. No, I'm just playing. You right. Lemonade costs $13 now. So I want to thank you all for being so patient with us. You have been an amazing audience. I can tell you we are so excited. We didn't expect the outcome that we got. I take that back. Jesus expected it. We questioned it. And then 7 days ago, we were looking and we were like, oh my God. And then we were like, but the music panel has to close it out because Jesus loves music. I love music. I have an AI artist called Drama. Steve loves music. So I figured this would be the best way for me to use my voice. Awesome. So, gentlemen, I'm going to switch it up. Haven't done this for any other panels, but since you guys are the last ones and you're rocking with me, I'm going to do what nobody else got the chance to do. Just please tell us your name and the company you're going to be representing today, and then we're going to get right into it. You don't have to do the bio or the backstory. Just your name and the company you're representing, and we'll jump right into it.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Ivan Calderon. I am a producer and a YouTube content creator, and I'm here representing myself.
All right. Self.
My name is Randy Ojeda. I'm a music and entertainment lawyer and attorney. I'm representing Randy Ojeda Law. So,
I already know 3 questions you're going to get.
Alex Harris, and I am representing both my foundation, Arts Conservatory for Teens, that we train a lot of artists, as well as I'm a music entertainer myself, singer-songwriter with Shawnee Universal Music Group.
All right. So we're going to get right to the core of the questions we need to ask. In the room, of those brave souls remaining, how many of you have used the AI tool that has helped you either write, produce, mix, or create lyrics or anything in the music realm? By a show of hands. All right. Why are y'all not sitting in the front? No, I'm just playing. Second, how many of you believe AI is a net positive for working musicians and the music industry overall? Okay, so positive feedback. Okay. The AI music industry is a market that's headed to $40 billion by the year 2033. The major labels just spent 2 years suing the companies building it, and then turned around and signed licensing deals to the exact same companies that they were once suing. Over 200 artists signed a letter saying AI was an existential threat, and over 60% of working musicians are already using AI tools on their production process right now. The industry is not waiting on the conversation to resolve. They're resolving the conversation themselves. It's already happening in the studio, in the contracts, in the courtrooms, and in the streaming numbers. This panel are the people living right in the middle of it. So Randy, you're an entertainment attorney in 2026. AI copyright law is being made in real time by judges who have never heard a Suno track in their life, let alone can they probably hear anymore. What do your clients ask you most often, and what's the honest answer you have to give them?
yeah, the question I get asked most often from artists about AI is, can I register this work? You know, can I register my music? Can I copyright my music? And that's a question that's kind of still being answered. So recently, the performing rights organizations, and I don't know if everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say performing rights organizations, but that's companies like BMI or ASCAP in the United States, and they basically collect the composition and publishing royalties for songwriters. So they recently made a ruling that said that partially AI-generated works are able to be registered through their systems. Now, what does partially mean? That's the question, right? So even further, the Copyright Office took a step further and said that not only does it need to have human involvement, but that AI work needs to have significant human involvement to be copyrighted. Again, the question is, what's significant? What does that mean? How much human involvement is necessary? How much AI, what's the percentage? What exactly counts as human involvement? Those are the questions that are going to be answered by arguments and litigation and courtroom proceedings and whatnot for the rest of forever.
Oddly enough, that series of questions reminded me of asking an ex-girlfriend, "What do you want to eat tonight?" Just never got an answer.
No, you just never know.
Just kept going. Ivan, you teach thousands of producers how to work with more effectively in the studio. Where is AI genuinely making production better, and where is it making people think that they're making better music? They're just not making better music. They're just making it faster.
So I will sort of echo what Randy was saying, that even within the production space, this is still kind of an area that a lot of us are still having a hard time figuring out, because we're not necessarily against technology. I mean, a lot of the software that we use now to make music is technology. We're not recording the tape anymore. And so as far as, at least within the context of production, I think it's important that we first differentiate the kinds of AI. Because a lot of times when people don't know, you just kind of categorize them into one, artificial intelligence. But at least from my perspective, I've seen two kinds. I've seen generative AI and I've seen assistive AI. Assistive AI can be really freaking cool. So for example, there's a company that I work with called Safari Audio. They make a lot of like plugins and like really cool things like that. They just recently released a integration into a DAW called Meow Assist. They're very like animal focused, so like the name is kind of funny. But essentially it's a chat box within your DAW, and it works by feeding it whatever you have already created. So you could say like, hey, can you put on your producer hat and tell me what this is missing? It doesn't do it for you. It just gives you a sort of an idea of like what to do.
So kind of like, let me tweak these hi-hats, or let me change the frequency of this bass.
Yeah,
or things
just
like that.
give me like a helping hand. Another example of assistive AI is there's a company called Splice. If you make music, you maybe heard of them. They have a subscription service where you sign up and they give you credits to purchase sample packs, and that's how you're able to make your music. They just started integrating themselves into DAWs. The one that I use, Studio Pro by Fender, they were the first ones to do it. And so if you ever get stuck, you could just drag the entire arrangement to that box, and it finds similar sounds that you can then use to finish your music. That's really freaking cool. Assistive AI. The one that I'm still struggling with internally, and I don't know if I'll ever come to like terms with it, is generative AI, where you're like going to Suno, like write me a 80s synth pop track that has, these elements, a trumpet, and sounds nostalgic, and go, and it spits it out. There's a lot of ways that we can talk about it, but at least for me as a producer, someone who actually like loves this craft, that's not fun to me. For me, the process is what's fun. It's finding that magic. It's putting those puzzle pieces together. Because for me, at least, production isn't just about the end product, which is what generative AI seems to be kind of headed or geared towards. For me, it's a moment in time. It's energy with people. It's that human element that I hold very dear. And so generative AI, I think, is what's sort of allowing this to become more widely spread for anybody who doesn't do music. And that's the one that I think is still kind of up in arms in terms of opinions. But assistive AI is really cool.
I got it. That makes sense. Alex, you've shared the stages with Aretha Franklin, Al Green, and now me. Let's just say, what does human performance give a song that a technically perfect AI-generated track can't? And do audiences actually care about that difference anymore?
That's a great question, because I think that when you think about music, right, it was born out of an experience, a human experience. And that's something that human experience is something that cannot be carbon copied in any way. While we're in the intelligence age, I think that again, about assistant AI, we've always experienced the evolution of the intelligence, and how it can help us in live performances, through stems and all the other things that are used to enhance our live performance. But when it comes from something from the soul, I think what's from the heart and soul reaches the heart and soul, and that's our human connection. And I think we've always existed with ever-evolving technology, but nothing could really take the place of something that is mimicking the human experience, because it doesn't have soul or heart. And so singing is as other art forms is really something. And as a live performance, we're feeding off the audience. And so every night we can do the same set, the same lyrics, but it's going to feel different if you come a second night or a third night, whether it's in theater, whether it's in music or whatever. And so while I think there is a place for the artificial intelligence in the music industry, we were talking backstage, I don't think it can replace that human experience. Can it be appreciated and enjoyed by humans? Of course. But will it replace it? I don't think it can, because it's not human.
So I have a couple of follow-ups to the things you guys said first. I'm going to go with you first, Al. I guess for me, I don't know, normally, as you get older, your hearing gets worse. Something happened where I feel like my ears just unclog, and kind of as an audiophile, I hear everything now. I just hear things different, and it actually started when I forced myself to learn how to play bass guitar last year, because I just wanted to be more in contact with music. For me, AI music, and you might be able to test this, the breathing pattern, unfortunately, is the same, because you can't teach the machine how to breathe pain and emotions. So now, when I hear the music, when I'm listening, I can tell AI immediately, because even if the voice, the vocals, the octave, if all that changes, there's nothing that ever changes about the breathing pattern. So that's why it always seems less authentic to me. So do you think, or do you maybe fear, that if they figure that part out, how does it work? Because I can listen to an AI song and I know when they're going to do a run. I know that if you type in the letter R 3 times in Suno, it's going to carry it out a certain way. But what happens if they start to figure out the actual breathing patterns and the things that make artists unique? That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah, I think that, again, the human experience is so unique to the moment that we can figure out what has happened, but what is and what will happen can't be figured out. And so the human, again, is artificial intelligence. It's mimicking the intelligence of humans. And I think that while it will always be appreciated by the humans in some shape, form, or fashion, and it can be categorized in some way, it's hard for me to say it will replace as much as it chases us to replace. And I know there are some folks, I was watching something that talks about the fear of the ability to kind of surpass the human. But even with that, the question becomes, will it be infinite or finite? Because once it goes so far, remember, it was created to mimic the experience. So that's questionable in my opinion.
Before we move back to the ownership rights and the legal framework, Ivan, I want to ask you one more quick question, and I just want your honest opinion. What AI tool or capability actually surprised you, or something that made you reconsider your assumptions about where we draw the line between real artists and AI artists?
Like I said before, there's a lot of really cool software being developed, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a specific piece of software or AI tool. I think it's more so the application of how it's being used by people in a really interesting way. And what I mean by that is that I'm incredibly biased as a producer who learned production in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I have, again, a love for this craft and the human element of it. At first, I was very skeptical and kind of just off-put by it. Recently, though, I had a conversation with one of the artists that I work with, and a friend at this point. We were at a coffee shop a few days ago, and he's a father now, and so he doesn't really have enough time anymore to kind of go through that process. And he's a really big hip-hop head. He used to love digging through samples and putting stuff together. And so inevitably, he asked me the question of what I thought about AI, and at first I was like, no, I don't really mess with it. And then he told me that as of late, because he doesn't really have time anymore and he still wants to be a present father, he's been using tools like ChatGPT to help him find samples, obscure samples that maybe he wouldn't have found himself. Then he takes those samples and then chops them up and continues to do what he does to do. So it was, for me, a bit of a realization that it's not all black and white. You can use these tools in a way that can assist you in pursuing the thing you love in a way that still allows you to retain your humanity and creativity.
And Randy, I wanted to jump into the Suno lawsuit that's going on. Do you have some of the framework of that, or can I just jump into the question?
Jump right in. Yeah.
Okay. So the Suno settlements changed things, but it didn't settle them. Because just for everybody else to know, there's $500 million lawsuits being filed against Suno right now. So a lot of people are suing Suno for, it's artificial intelligence. You had to feed it somewhere. If you've heard an AI song by Suno, I can guarantee you, and this is going to speak more to the R&B heads, you're going to hear something that sounds like Johnny Gill. There's some runs that sound just like him. But you aren't going to hear anything that sounds like Frank Ocean, and you're not going to hear anything that sounds like Gallant. So I know they're building these things off of older models because the contracts were different back then. The ownership was different. So what's the practical state or play right now on independent artists who discovers an AI model that is trained on their recordings, and with the way these contracts are written, I'll say borderline death sentences of how they control you, what leverage are artists really going to have when it comes down to it? Because I'm seeing the leverage is really the major record labels are still just partnering with the enemies at this point, if that's how they're perceived.
Yeah, honestly, I think artists have more leverage than they realize. It's only recently, and by recently I mean like in the last 6 months to a year, that we've actually seen AI provisions in these record contracts. Like, that's a relatively new thing. But nowadays, like, almost every contract I see has some kind of provision about, can your intellectual property be used for AI training? And that's something that is, if that's not in your contract, if that's not explicitly opted into, the law hasn't really shaken out on how it sits on this, but I would argue that as an artist, you have leverage, and you have the opportunity to say, like, I didn't agree to this training, and that's happened time and time again in the music industry, because obviously the industry didn't know that we'd get to iTunes downloads, and then they didn't know that we'd get to streaming, and they didn't know we'd get to whatever brain implant they're gonna do next for music, so without contemplating things in deals, you typically need to renegotiate, and that's where your leverage comes in.
Alex, what's that? He says that. You put it out there. You're a recording artist. You're still creating. What's the one thing that still kind of keeps you up at night? What's scaring you about AI right now?
Well, I won't say something that's necessarily scaring me, but it is a concern. I was sharing backstage my recent single Better. It was charting top 40 Billboard, and we got to number 33, something like that. Then this AI artist appeared, and we were neck to neck for about 2 or 3 weeks, and we know the people that's behind it. And my thing is that,
can you tell? If you don't want to tell us one side, can you tell me the AI artist? Because I'm just wondering, was it Will or was it the girl?
The girl.
The little emotional, I turn my poetries into song girl. Okay,
I think that is.
Yeah,
I forget the name, but anyway, and so we were talking to the team. It was like, oh my goodness, I thought it was a bit unfair, because that's the reason why we have instrumentalist category. We have you don't put a metal rock group against an R&B or it's categorized. So I think we can be a lot more respectful for the artists who are creating on the traditional raw side, as well as those who are creating on the more artificial intelligence. So it should be separated.
I was about to say, in conclusion, they just need to have their own category.
Yeah, just like cartoons. You don't put a cartoon up against Denzel unless there was something like that one movie that they had real people in it. That's a different category of itself.
I agree with you.
I have a kind of a funny story about this similar thing. Is I was contacted recently by an AI artist, or the person that runs the AI artist, right? And they had one of the top 50 viral songs on the country charts on Spotify. Totally AI artist. The photos were AI generated. The music was fully AI generated.
Is this the Rust dude?
I can't.
Oh,
I can't
my bad.
say.
Client
but the person that's actually creating the music or through the AI is this 20-year-old kid from Jamaica, and it's this country, this massive country single, and he reached out to me because somebody else stole the AI song. Like, and literally just use same exact song, same song title, everything, just change the artist name, re-uploaded it onto Spotify and everything, and now that song's doing numbers, you know? So he's like, well, can I sue this guy? And I was like, you really can't, you know, because you can't send the DMCA takedown for a copyright that doesn't exist. And, you know, fully AI generated work right now is not copyrightable. So, you know, AI theft is a thing now. People are just stealing the AI work.
I was about to say, to sound like 1988 New Jack Swing jacking for beats. It's like, it's just a while.
Yeah.
Oh, you put it up, let me rep it out. I got you, bro. I'm going to make my own version.
Right.
But I mean, I guess that's true. Like, it's almost like it's like somebody breaking into your house and stealing something. Then somebody steals it from them, and it's like, I'm going to file an insurance claim. Bro, you stole it.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is y'all are laughing. But that's what most of the art industry is. Most of the art industry is illegally claimed art that gets put through Sotheby's and Christie's. They get it appraised. They take ownership of it. But if we trace the roots, most of the artwork historically is stolen. So if we think about the origin of the music, we sample, we all build off of something. There's only so many riffs. There's only so many chords. Where do we play into ownership? And how do we take that? How do we put a claim on human ownership to make this a more viable solution? Because I'll admit, I use Suno for what I would say is when I'm making creator beats. I just don't want to deal with the licenses at that point. I don't want to be disrespectful. So I go play a quick riff on my guitar, run it through Suno, boom, I'm good to go. That's what I'm putting up. But how do we make this work? I like the creativity, but as an artist, I don't like to see things stolen from people.
Is that for me?
It's for everybody.
Okay. You got any thoughts?
What was the question again?
He doesn't like to see things stolen from people. So
Yeah.
I think that it's obviously once it, there's a legal public domain and then there's an actual public domain. I think once you put it out there, we can be inspired by other artists. And I'll give an example. I was doing a tour in South Korea, and some of the, and then while there, we were doing these master classes, and some of the students at the Seoul Music Institute were absolutely amazing. They didn't speak the English language, so I had an interpreter, but when they could sing it, it's pretty much like I sing when I study
That feels
classical
so
Italian.
weird to me, yeah, but I get it.
Well, I sing Italian, I sing German when I did classical music, but my thing is, but I don't speak it, the language, outside of singing, so, but the way they were singing Alicia Keys' song can give her a run for her money, seriously, no joke, meaning that their ability to bring it and make it their own. But what I was teaching them, development of personal style, to bring your, again, the word experience and your authenticity to it. I think that what I seek to encourage artists is it's okay to be inspired by other artists, but who are you, right? Who are you was because I think the thing is, it's a value that I think we have to teach people in, around character. Will somebody not steal it? Of course they're still gonna steal, but I think it's okay to be inspired by someone, like whether it's the old singers of Motown or Stax, but you're not trying to go out and be that artist or take everything that they were doing. I think if you dig deep within, your own experience is going to dictate that. Now let me just say this and I'll be quiet now. James Brown, when I was little, I grew up in a gospel church where we didn't listen to anything but gospel. And so, but when I would perform, people were like, that's like, he's like Michael Jackson or James Brown. I'd never seen them before. But what I learned in studying that background, we shared a lot of the same experiences that allowed my interpretation experience without even seeing them innately to really almost be as if I had seen them. I'm literally talking about going across the floor, but all that came out of the Pentecostal movement of what James Brown was inspired by, and the hand clapping and the foot stomping and the way they expressed themselves. So now when I sing and people are like, wait a minute, it felt like I, was Otis Redding, or well, I'm from Georgia. We had some of the same experiences, on all these things, but I had never seen these people before. And so that's an example.
I like that because I was saying the premise of human nature, we're normally closer and more alike than we are apart, but we just don't like to admit that. You guys had some comments I think you were going to say.
So in terms of like the theft stuff, I'll play the other side. I hope somebody steal my stuff because then I'll call Randy and we'll just left all the way to the bank.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like I think I used to worry more about that in the beginning, but at the end of the day, like Alex was saying, we're all inspired by each other. But I think that's the like main difference between like AI, maybe, I don't know, just kind of spitballing, and like human. Human has an emotion that is inspired by whatever you created, and I would argue that there's nothing new under the sun and there's no original thought. We're all inspired by each other. And so, yeah, what I will say though, and maybe I'll tap in Randy for this one, I do wish that the infrastructure for like the royalties and all that back end would stop being so antiquated, because then it'd be easier to sort of square up and be like, okay, you sampled this, let's just kind of like figure it out and keep it moving. But in terms of like theft, I personally don't worry about that anymore.
Well, Randy, with him saying that and him pointing to you as his attorney, I guess the question is, what can be in a contract right now? What's the non-negotiable? What's the clauses that could protect your artist that wasn't there 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's the AI model, AI training clauses. Saying, you're allowing this intellectual property to be used for training is such a big deal, and you see that now in all sorts of different industries. They'll have AI training clauses in their contracts, and music's only just starting to catch on to that. But I mean, yeah, to Ivan's point, I think the theft thing is a little more overblown than, because people don't usually just straight up steal. If they do, there's consequences typically. But
except if you copy the Jamaican country song.
Yeah, exactly. Except when you copy so go nuts with that. But I would refer to like the Robin Thicke Blurred Lines case.
Oh, Robin Thicke and Pharrell when they took from Marvin Gaye.
Right, when they took from Marvin Gaye, and the court in that said essentially that they didn't steal the exact notes, they didn't steal the music, but they stole the vibe, the feeling. That what you were talking about, like that human expression, and that they took that feeling from the other song, and I think that's where, how can AI do that? I don't know,
There's a real blurred line.
It's a real blurred line. Yes, exactly.
I also think only Marvin Gaye has that kind of power, because Marvin Gaye really was a vibe.
Well, there's Barry Gordy.
Yeah. The way they segment it, but unfortunately, Pharrell is a sample king. That was that song. I think they should have lost the case, but
yeah.
So, Ivan, you've also built an audience. So I want to get into the music and distribution side before I kind of open this up for the audience to ask some question. You built an audience teaching producers how to make music, but right now with the content ecosystem and where, like me, AI can generate something in production in a matter of seconds, what will the human creators hold on to that absolutely can't be automated? And I want you to think about that a little bit, because people have a short attention span, and I feel like I've always said this, and I guess this is where I say it's like this is the old man in me. We have a generation now that listens to the singles and don't know anything about the album.
Yeah, I've thought about this too much probably, because that is what I do. So for the people who, like, I've mentioned this before, but I've been on YouTube now for like 8-9 years, building a community of people, producers and that kind of thing. I think the first thing that we have to be aware of is keeping sort of your ear to the ground. I kind of rose to prominence with tutorials, but I stopped doing those as of late, simply because anybody can do those, and there's really not much. We could argue that people come and stay for my personality or whatever, but the way things are going on this like exponential J curve that we've been on, they might be able to replicate like the breaths or whatever in a couple of years. But what I think they will not be able to replicate, which is where I'm leaning into, is community. And ironically enough, we're circling back to that sort of where we started. We've down this deep end, and we're accepting a lot of this and embracing a lot of it. But I think there's also a big subset of people who are just longing for that human connection. And so me personally, I will say that it's a little bit harder for newer creators. I've been on the internet for over a decade, so like if someone were to clone me again, I'd probably be calling Randy, and we'd have an issue. But for someone new, I think it's important to build that community. I've been doing a lot more live streams. I've been creating and fostering spaces much like this, where people can, maybe not even just online, offline, where you can come and engage and have that experience. But I would say it's important to continue to foster those communities. At the end of the day, that's what we have that I think AI won't be able to replicate, at least not as easily.
I think that's big in music and AI, but I think that's big in anybody that's an entrepreneur. You have to You have to find a way to control data and pull your own data, and can't just, as I say now, lease digital space for somebody else to own you. Because if your whole career is dependent on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and Spotify, you're in a hard position right now.
I mean, this is a whole different like conversation as well, but I also think it's important, kind of tapping into that, for you to own your own little piece of whatever it is. If you garner attention online, make sure you have your own area, private area, where you can then funnel people to help solve problems or whatever. Because the way that I see social media, at least me personally, is just this highway for attention, but then I want to funnel you down into a place that I own that's not necessarily dictated by algorithms.
I get it. So I want to ask you guys more of a big question before I open it up to the audience, and then we'll have one little last segment. So I just want you to be honest here. I don't want the inspirational answer. I want the real raw stuff. If you were a 16-year-old right now who wanted to build a music career, what do you actually tell them? And or you're 16 right now. What are you doing differently? And even you as a lawyer, you're 16 right now. What do you do differently in your career than what you did when you were 16?
I mean, I think Ivan hit it on the head with build a community. You know, I mean, the music industry is, you know, it kind of the floodgates opened with streaming and everybody had access to everything, and now it's starting to shift back to a direct-to-consumer model where you're selling directly to your fans, you're owning that fan relationship, you're owning that information that you're getting from your buyers and your users or your audience. And I think if I were a 16-year-old artist, I would be building that community with, you know, my friends, my family, my neighborhood, you know, and start making those one-to-one connections as much as possible, because that's how you're going to cut through the noise. I mean, because everything's available all the time ad nauseum, it's like having, you know, either physical products or direct one-to-one relationships with the creators is so much more important than it ever has been.
Alex, before you answer, I'm just curious. I think the last two people that really accomplished this was Kanye West and Tyler, the Creator. Tyler with Wolfgang, they have almost a cult following. I don't know if people see it this way, but this is just the way I see it. I feel Kanye West purposely circumvented himself from a lot of contracts and a lot of deals, because now he's pretty much an independent artist. And for him to turn around and sell out SoFi by himself, he made more money than most people would make on a label if they went and did a 20-city tour. And he did 2 stops or 2 shows at one location. Right. How are you positioning yourself to make your next big moves with everything that's going on? And I mean, owning the data, owning everything. What's next for you? Because I see you as more of a pinnacle to give this information and let everybody know. Like, what's the next move? What should we be thinking about? What should they be doing?
Absolutely. This is something that I talk about and think about, and someone had a conversation with me a few years ago, and one of the conversations that they told me, they said, you know, think of it this way: if you had, you know, 1,000 people giving, you know, committed to, which would be a community, $100, you know, a year, whether it's in tickets, merch, and so on and so forth, you know, it's $100,000 you're bringing in. So you grow that. I think building community and owning your data, like, I think something right now that doesn't seem that it may not go away soon, I put that out there because you may have some information I don't have, is emailing. Like, you can direct engage people. If you just depend solely on this social media platforms, we don't own that in the data, and it could be sold, and anything could happen with the blah, blah, blah. But email database and finding ways to collect that. One thing that I do when I go out now is QR code, announce it several times, join it, follow, because then the idea is to transfer that to something as simple as $4.99 a month, and you get XYZ, and then you upsell it. But it start to create your own community, and to your point, your cult following, which I've seen a lot of bands that not on radio or charting, but they're touring heavily, and they have that following, and you just say, where are all these people? Where did y'all hear that? You know, we just on the middle of this, you know? Yeah. And I learned that the great gospel singer Andre Crouch taught that to some people back in the day when they were literally snail mail. They built that mailing list. They built that mailing list. That way, they were always selling out merch. They were always selling out
Prince
tickets.
did it with New Power Generation
Absolutely.
when he had Paisley
Absolutely.
Park. And I would add to that, if you guys are taking any of this information, micro surveys, give away free tickets, give away something, and you don't need to collect anything but a zip code. Zip codes will give you a premise of a parameter of where you should do your next show. So if you get a certain amount of hits from, let's say down here, 33647, and you're like, oh, that's the new Tampa area, I'm going to do a show and pop up in New Tampa, you can make more money instead of going through Ticketmaster, going through a promoter. You can just hit your people up, hey, I'm doing a pop-up show, and they're like, oh, he randomly selected us. No, you've collected the right data to make those decisions to make your business more informative. So there are little tricks like that I would say now they're considered old school tricks, but they work better than, I know, they work better than, I'll mention it. They work better than cookies and analytics because they still are filtering that data the way they see fit because they want to keep you in an ear loop in a cycle. And as I said, ear loop, we used to have a product called the ear card. It was a digital download card. It was primarily in South America. And the card will allow, say you have an album, it's a scratch off card that would have a 16-digit code. You registered and you got to download the album. But then the album became an opening for tickets. You can now show up at a concert. They would scan your card just like a credit card. You pay for your concert in advance. You get in. We have figured out a way to cut out Ticketmaster and everybody where you controlled all the data. And we did that 20 years ago, and nobody understood it. And now they're looking at us. They were like, oh, we should have, shut up. You know, it's just a very emotional conversation because it's like we tried to tell you, but we were seeing data. We look at the world through data. I want to get some questions because Alex has to go, and these guys have a plethora of information. I could talk to them all day, but go ahead.
I have a question. This might be more pertinent to either Alex or welcome to jump in as well. I'm a professional musician. I'm a music educator. I taught high school choir and orchestra. I have a community choir out in Plant City, and something that I think is a hallmark of music that is long-standing is the intimate relationship that the creator has with the music. If you think about music from all across history, whether it's Bach or Tchaikovsky or Duke Ellington, who could, literally could sit on a train and write vertically down the page, they had an intimate knowledge of everything that was happening in their piece of music. So where do you see that relationship and that intimate understanding of music coming into play with AI? Because if I can look at AI and say, write me X, Y, and Z, and it does all of the stuff, and I don't even have access to the score or the tracks or, the ability to independently manipulate the elements of music, how much of a relationship am I going to have with that music as a creator, as an artist, and how can we maybe leverage these tools? You were talking about assistive AI earlier. How can we leverage these tools so that we don't absolve ourselves or outsource that intimate connection we have with our piece of art?
Yeah, I think there is a way, and I've sort of experimented in a way of kind of doing that in a way that still allows me to be creative. So, for example, I agree with you 100%. I think part of what makes music special is because it's a transition of emotion, of experience, of like life, and you hear it specifically when you hear like maybe like neo soul records or like R&B or like even classical. I can see maybe a scenario where you prompt something to be like, give me a 3-chord progression in a neo soul sort of like whatever, and then I play that and continue building off of that. And so I used it in that way as a springboard to get to what I wanted, but I would still, me personally, I would still go out of my way to play those chords because I think part of what also makes music timeless is the imperfections, the human part of it, right? Not everything has to be necessarily on the grid. That's human and that's beautiful. So I do think assistive is something that I'm interested in exploring with more as a means to maybe creating progressions or like maybe creating deeper compositions. But I do see that being a possibility, yeah.
We got one back here and one over here, so go ahead. Are you speaking more of just the streaming platforms or just? Okay, I'll let y'all have that book.
Yeah, I mean, I forget the number keeps going up, but it's something like 100,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify every day, you know? So I feel like music's already oversaturated, you know? I think, and the AI music is just making that problem worse, you know? But that's why, you know, I would fall back on the small communities, direct to consumer marketing, you know, rather than trying to compete with the 100,000, just own your audience and own your base, you know?
Absolutely, I agree 200%. It's just really finding your tribe is another word. Like where are the consumers for this genre, right? And then really engaging that particular group and growing it from there. There's pockets to what you were saying about the zip codes. Yeah. So finding where your consumers are, just like with your product, take it to them and deliver over and over and over. And that's what we're starting to see that's be successful.
I think from a psychological standpoint, at some points, people are going to have to stop caring about being famous and being known by everybody, and you'll build to cater to a community. And when you build to cater to that community, it will naturally draw other people to your community. So it kind of goes into all of that.
And if I could say this, when you look at Taylor Swift filling stadiums or Lainey Wilson or Beyonce, but these people grind really hard. One guy was telling me, you remember Taylor Swift walking in Nashville when they were open, one of the banks, I forget the name of it, I think it was First Horizon, and they were opening the entertainment, and this young lady walks in with her guitar and play for them, right? She was like the opening act to, I think Luke Combs, not Luke Combs, was the one who's on Idol, Luke.
I know
Luke Bryan.
Luke Bryan, yeah.
Luke Bryan.
One of the Lukes.
Yeah.
One
Luke
of the
Bryan.
Lukes.
He's the one been out for a while. So it's Luke Bryan. He was the headliner, but she was walking around in Nashville with acoustic guitar doing, you know, solo shows. But she built the cult following, and now she can fill a stadium for 2 nights and do a world tour. But she didn't start overnight. She's almost 30 years old. She's been doing this since she was like 12 years old, all the time. Beyonce the same way, all the time. And that's what it really, you know, most people don't look at it as building their business over time. Starbucks was in Seattle for a while. Now they're on every corner anywhere you want them, right? And so, but that didn't happen over time. But musicians, so sometimes we think that, oh man, I got this hot beat or I got this hot song that everybody's going to like it and it's going to be fire and it's going to be a major hit. Well, that's relative, whatever's a hit, right?
I love that you say that because I think it's one of those things, it's going to have to be the storytelling because it's going to become the backstory, and that's what AI can never give you. AI won't have the backstory, and it definitely won't have the proof. And I mean, some of these people don't even have the creativity to be like, you know what? I'm just going to take a picture of one of my friends. It's an AI-generated photo. So if I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can't attach myself to this. But I think it's just going to be that challenge of the storytelling because that's what I think almost every industry is lacking right now. And almost every corporate industry is trying to figure out, like, what stories can McDonald's tell to get a 13-year-old into McDonald's versus when we were growing up, you had Ronald McDonald. You had the playgrounds. You had components that tied you to it. And immersive and interactive elements of marketing have died out, and it's happening with music. So if people have a backstory, they're going to create that community. Last question back here. Come up a little bit and talk. I can barely hear you. Talk a little bit. Yeah, talk a little bit louder.
So I was just saying, I've booked over 1,000 artists in my lifetime, and I'm working with a lot of the top 10 Billboard charting artists. A lot of them are feeling that AI is homogenizing music at scale because we push the star 1,000 songs, 2,000 songs, 5,000 songs per week. They want more than create multiple accounts and pay monthly to get credits to really do that. Mindfully, 90% of the songs are trash, and it's subjective. Right?
No, they're trash. It's not subjective. Go ahead. I'm going to pass it to the panel, but I'm going to say this. I think it's already there, and I think it's showing with vinyl. Because no AI artist is going to invest in getting vinyl pressed.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be small little cues that will start to separate the artist from the AI artist. But that's just my initial feeling.
I would agree. I think we're already there. I actually see a future, sadly enough, where companies like Apple Music or Spotify specifically, where it's mostly AI music and it's background music. It's the stuff you play at a party or whatever. You're not listening intentionally. It's just kind of there. And I do think, I don't know what that looks like in terms for like labels, but at least independent artists, there is a push to, again, build that community and go back to selling from the trunk or whatever you need to do to be able to create that direct-to-consumer. But yeah, I definitely think we're already there, and it's only getting worse.
That might be the rise of the DJ, because DJs will have to curate the music to make sure it's there.
That's true.
Yeah, I will say that there is some research on the latest generation Y.
Say that again?
The latest generation is Y, right? Or Z?
Z, I think.
Oh, is
yeah.
it Z? We down to Z now.
I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, the
There's
little
one
ones.
after that. There's one after that too. Alpha. That's what I was looking at. So the Alpha and the Y generation are. It is believed that, because I think it started with Z, resurgence of what was like for example. I was at this radio station the other day, and we were talking about some of the students with our organization learning that trade. Well, that's kind of new technology for them because they didn't come up with that. So the vinyl, while it may be familiar with us who were born, but it's new to the Y and the Z and the Alpha, right? So there is a resurgence of an appreciation of genres like the blues or like soul music, because it's new, because remember, it's kind of peeking through, and then they're able to say, oh, wow, And I was talking to this guy the other day, and he was talking about his son just into this, like, soul music and American roots and stuff like that. And for him, it's like, oh, okay, But this is all new to him, and he's in college as a freshman or something in college. So I think that while there will be I think it will kind of cross over into more of an expansion as opposed to this kind of just total kind of mixed in one right now, as we're actively participating in that as a recording academy to advocate for that distinction and to make sure that songwriters, I sit on that committee, songwriters and composers wing.
I hope it helps. I just hope there's a resurgence of them learning how to tell time on a clock also.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna, to add to that. So in addition to music, I also represent a lot of influencers and even like OnlyFans creators. And something I've learned from the OnlyFans market is that there is something for everybody. Like, you can be very specific about your market.
All right, guys, loosen up.
Yeah,
Think about
I'm
what
just
he's
saying.
really saying.
I'm just
OnlyFans is not just that. It's not just toes and stuff.
It's whatever you are looking
Whatever,
for.
literally,
Whatever you're looking for.
literally.
And I think music is going to become the same way, where it's like, if you're really into a specific sound or a specific thing, there's going to be tons of music out there that's for that.
I agree. The funny thing is, I own only podcasters, because I think there's going to have to be another point of separation where somebody filters, because there's so much noise. Anybody can get a $499 podcast platform, throw their stuff up on Spotify and Apple Music, and it's like, take these down. Just because I have a mic. No, I'm looking at myself. Like, just because you have a microphone doesn't mean people want to hear you speak. But sometimes we have to kind of filter it out. But guys, I want to say thank you, for your patience and for your intelligence. But before anything, we're just going to do this. We made it through the day. Y'all did it. Thank you so much.